Hey guys, what's up? Today we are going to be learning how to create a repository on GitHub. We're going to set the repository up. We're going to clone it down to our local box. We're going to add some files to it. We're going to do a git push, which is sending the files up to GitHub to the repository, and then we'll view those files on GitHub. The first thing you're going to need is going to be a GitHub account. So head over to GitHub, sign up, and then log in. Other than that, you'll just need a Linux command line where you can run the Git commands. Once you have your GitHub account set up, log into GitHub and look for the new button. We're going to go ahead and we're going to click on that new button and set up our new repository. First thing we need to do is give our repository a name. Description is optional. We'll give it one anyway. After we have the description, next we can select public or private. Public means anybody will be able to view this repository. If we select private, that means only we can see the code in this repository. You can, however, hop over to the settings once the repository has been created and add users to the repository. We're going to make this one public, however, because this is for our tutorials, so everybody needs to see it. After that, we're going to check this box right here. Initialize this repository with a README. Basically, you can think of the README file as an instruction manual for the repository. We got all that filled out. We're going to hit Create Repository. This will take us to our repository homepage. You can see we created our GitHub tutorial. We're on the code tab and we have one commit. That's the initial commit as we see here, which was the first commit when we just clicked that button. We have our README file here. So that is how we set up the repository on GitHub. Now that we have our repository created on GitHub, we need to open up a command line. So I'm going to open up the Cygwin Linux command line here on because I'm running Windows, and I'm going to go to my WAMP folder. And then I'm going to cd into the www folder. The www folder is where we're going to clone the repository we just created, GitHub tutorials. I'm going to go back to the website, and you're going to look for the clone or download button. Clone or download. You're going to click on that, and you're going to copy this right here. And then head back to the command line. This is the first command we're going to learn, the Git Clone Command. This will pull everything from GitHub in that repository and place it in a folder on your local box. Git Clone, and we're going to paste the link we just copied. And then we're going to hit Enter. GitHub will tell us it's cloning. It'll give us some percentages, 100, 100, 100, and done. Our repository has been cloned from GitHub down to our local box. Now we should be able to cd into GitHub tutorials. Let's do a list on here and see what's in there. In our GitHub tutorials folder, we have our README file. We've successfully created a repository on GitHub and cloned it to our local box. Now that we have cloned our repository down to our local box, we can head over to a new tab. We can go to localhost GitHub_tutorials, see what we got, which is nothing. The first thing we need to do is we need to add an index page. Hop over to our folder. All we have is the README file and the .git, which is the GitHub folder, storing all of our repository information. And we're going to create an index file. We're going to open this index file up, and we're going to say GitHub tutorials. Save that, hop back over to the browser. We see we have our index page. We're done. We got our index page completed. Now we need to commit that to the repository. We'll go back to our command line here. First thing we're going to type is git status. This command will give us the status of the repository as it is on our local box. I type git status and I hit enter. See here we have untracked files, index.php, which is saying, hey, on your local box, we have found an index.php file that you added, and that index.php file is not up on GitHub. So we need to add this file. To do this, we're going to do git add -- all. Now what this is doing is it's preparing the index file to be committed. We're going to run our git status command again, and it should be green lighted and ready to commit. Hit enter. So we got our index.php file is now green lighted. It says changes to be committed. So we're ready to do our git commit command. We're going to do git commit -m. And this is going to be the commit message. On GitHub, there's going to be a list of commits, and each commit needs a commit message. We're going to say adding index.php file. We're going to hit enter. Looks like everything went well. Commit went through. You can do git status one more time. Now, before this is going to appear on GitHub, and before anybody else can check out our repository with our index file, the most important command is the push command. This is what's going to actually push the files that we've changed up to the repository. So we're going to do a git push. We're going to hit enter, and we're going to watch GitHub send up our files. Done, 100%. Again, git status. I always love to run the git status command just to see and verify things. Again, working trees clean. That means if we head over to GitHub and we refresh this page here, we should see 2 commits. Our commit is there, and our index.php file has been added. Click on the commits. This is the list I was talking about of commits. We see my git commit message here, adding index.php file when it was added, and now in the file structure, the index.php file is here. We've successfully added file to the repo and pushed it up to the GitHub repository. Last thing I want to highlight in this video is the Git Pull command. Let's say you're working in your repository and another developer made some other changes and you need to get those changes. To highlight that, I'm going to go back to the file structure and I'm going to edit the README here right on GitHub. I'm going to say this README. I come down here and I'm going to click commit changes. This is a very simple example, but this could be people adding a bunch of code, bunch of files to the repo, pushing them up. And now on my local box, my README does not contain this sentence right here. If I go to my README file, open it, see I don't have this message here in my README file. Changes have happened elsewhere, and I need those changes. In order to get those changes, we run the Git Pull command. Hop over to my command line here. We're in our GitHub tutorials repository, and I'm going to do a git pull. So this will pull down everything that's been committed to the repository to my local repository. You can see it's going to tell you it's pulling stuff down, and it's going to tell you what has changed. The change I committed to README on github.com has been pulled down. If we go back to Sublime Text, there it is. It refreshed automatically, and that sentence has been added. The git pull command, I would say, is probably the most important command. You always want to run git pull before you start working on anything. If you don't do a git pull and you miss hundreds of changes and you start working, you're going to have merge conflicts up to who knows where. And all I can say to you at that point is RIP. So run git pull before you start doing any work. That way you have the most recent code and you're ready to go. That's going to about do it for this tutorial. We learned how to create a repository on GitHub. We cloned that repository using the command line git clone. We learned how to add our index.php file using git add function. Always use the git status command to check the status of the repository on your local box so you know exactly where it's at. We used the git commit with a message, and most importantly, we used the git push, which actually took the files from our local box and pushed them up. After that, we learned how to do the git pull command. Another really, really important command. Always be running the git pull command. I can't emphasize that one enough, and that's coming from years of experience. Well, that's going to about do it for this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned something, and I'll catch you later.